Okay, it is Thursday, July the 15th, 2021. Welcome to week 2 of Contemporary Issues in Criminal Justice. And all of you know me, or most of you know me from previous classes. I'm Professor Richard Wright, and I'm going to take the time to go over the assignments for this week, and then I'll let you go. Of course, I want to remind each of you that when you do your assignments, remember that they're due on Sundays. Your initial posts are due on Tuesday, which was a couple of days ago, and your reply posts are due on Saturday, and that your key phrase is also due on Sunday as well. And our lectures are every Thursday, except when we get to week 5, which we have a few more weeks to go, but we'll get there pretty fast. So you should be aware of that. And again, reminding you, there is no textbook for this course. This is basically a survey. That's why it's called capstone. And what capstone means is that you're capping off your knowledge that you've obtained in the last 2 years or so, moving toward your associate's degree. Hopefully many of you will continue on to get your bachelor's degree so that you can progress well, particularly if you're going to be a probation or parole officer. You cannot become either of those in most jurisdictions without obtaining a bachelor's degree. So we'll be hopefully seeing most of you again. So let's get right into sharing my screen. Okay. And you see I'm at student view again. You can see the emails that I have sent to you. And then this tells you about the assignments. As you can see, the due dates for the written assignment and for the live lecture, key phrase, are Sunday the 18th, and that the reply post is the 17th for discussion concerning the Green River Killer. And your initial post, of course, was due the 13th, which was Tuesday, and you'll see that on your course calendar. Okay. I will have graded all of week 1's assignments by within the next few days or so. So just hang in there. All right. So now, again, reminding you about the lounge and the course chat, where you'll find the information concerning me that used to be in the student lounge. And there it is right there. And it tells you some basic information for yourself. And then it also tells you about the discussion assignment. So the discussion assignment, the Green River Killer. So you're going to read this article, which by clicking on this link, that deals with Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. And you're going to deal with listing and discuss the various problems that the killers exhibited throughout their lives that have contributed to their behavior, and how did they continue to live among law-abiding citizens undetected, or in other words, how difficult was it to catch them. A minimum of 250 words in paragraphs that include a topic, sentence, several Body sentence and a closing transition statement, write in your own words. But in-text citations are not required, but welcome. And APA formatting references and so forth. Again, not required, but appreciated. So that's what you're going to do on your initial post. Respond to a peer's post. If you agree with their post, include some additional evidence to support your position. Or if you disagree, explain why a difference of opinion exists between you and the person whose post you selected. Provide evidence to support your alternative perspective. Remember, references make your opinions credible. I say that all the time in terms of your written assignments. And you know about the APA 7th edition. We talked about that already. How to make an appointment with a Rasmussen college librarian. You know who that is. That's Dennis Johnson for criminal justice. Okay, and then you type in your responses again. You see here, this is the reply post. Okay, so not the initial post. We'll see that in the course calendar. All right. So might as well take a look at the course calendar while we're at it. I like the month view, and you can see where the ball is. That's where we are for the live lecture for today. Your initial post, of course, was due on Tuesday. Your reply post is due the 17th. Your written assignment is due the 18th, which we'll talk about in more detail, and your live classroom lecture. That's it for the calendar. Also, be aware that the course ends on the 10th of August. 10th of August. So you got less than a month before this course is over. So it is advisable for you to keep up with your assignments and get them in on time and quality. Okay. And that's the course calendar. Let's take a look at remind you about the tools. Again, you have your resources tabs, which we talked about. Your syllabus, which again reminds you about my office hours, which says you can text me, call me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. That is the phone number that rings to my cell phone, which is right here next to me most of the time. And a reminder that you're required to conduct research for all papers. And then you will lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. Okay? All written assignments should be in APA format. That means citations in the body, the paper, and reference at the end. Remember, it helps to avoid plagiarism, and it also gives credibility to the statements that you include in your papers. Okay. So now let's take a look at the announcement. Week 2, which you should have seen already. It was posted on Monday. This week, we're dealing with criminal behavior theories, and we're going to talk about classical and positive theories on crime, rational choice and routine activity theory, and crime control methods. And so we're dealing with that in this lecture. You have the link, which you also have the link in the module itself as well. You could click on, and it will bring you right here to the live lecture. So again, your discussion assignment, Green River Killer, initial post Tuesday, as I said earlier, the 13th, reply post Saturday, the 17th, by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Finally complete the written assignment, Crime Theories. and it's due this Sunday. Okay, and then we're going to talk about that in a minute. I want to remind you to continue to be strong and to finish strong. And remember my motto, adversity is a springboard to success. Most of you know about that. So it is something that I focus on myself and sharing my personal experiences with students to encourage you, not to discourage you. Okay. Let's go back. Close the course announcements. Okay. So now let's take a look at the actual module itself. So this is the overview of what we plan on: defining theories of crime, psychological, biological, and sociological, and the research associated with each theory. Explain rational choice and show its connection to routine activity, showing based on your research. Examine and explain crime control methods associated with those methods as well. And then these are the things that we're going to talk about, the lesson content, in just a few minutes. I already talked about the assignments, but I'm going to go back and I want to talk about the assignments in a little more detail. I already talked about the discussion, and you know the live classroom is due the 18th. So let's focus in on the written assignment. Right, let's go over the assessment and details of that. So you have a fact pattern that's given, and you're going to do not one, not two, but 3-page paper, not 1 1/2, not 2 3/4, but 3 full pages, double spaced, APA formatted, citations in the body, and references at the end. All right. So in a 3-page paper, discuss how you would explain the criminal behavior of the boy according to each of the theories. And you'll have to do some research to get some of those definitions. So biological explanation, psychological explanation, social structure theory, social process theory. Explain which theory you believe fits this situation and why. Your paper should be, as I said, 3 pages. APA, in-text citations and reference page should be a cover page, properly formatted. And these are some of the resources below that can help you. Psychological theories, a review of youth violence, social control and self-control theories on criminal behavior, and then finally social structure, strain theory on criminal behavior. So we're going to be analyzing and looking at why crime takes place. Why? There are many reasons, but these are various theories that have been posited as to why individuals commit crime. You can elaborate on those in your paper. It must be in a Word document. All right, and I've already told you the requirements. Here is the rubric, and I talk about it all the time, but I'm going to show you more of the rubric in the other form. Let's get out of the student mode, and I'll go back, and we will go back to the rubric. Let's get out of this and then come back. Okay, now So here we are, no longer in the student mode. We already know about this, the content and the paper, but I want to make sure that you get the grading rubric and understand how I'm going to grade you. And here it is. As you should know and learn, as it comes up here momentarily, that the criteria column tells you the topics dealing with the biological, the psychological, and the social structure, the social process theory, and then what best fits your situation. So you're going to describe all of them, but you're going to, now notice what's important. I want you to concentrate on the mastery. That's the column that will get you an A if you satisfy all of those. And you can use this as a checklist to make sure that you've done properly. Notice what it says. Clear and comprehensive. Clear and comprehensive is the mastery. Proficiency is just a clear discussion. And then competence is somewhat clear. And then emerging is unclear completely. Now, how are you unclear? One of the ways that you are unclear is by not providing critical sources, citations in the body to support your statements. If you don't, you will end up over here, which is half the points necessary here. Or rather than get 20% of the grade, you get 10% of the grade. Notice again, the same thing over and over again. Over and over again. You see it. All right. Now, remember I told you earlier that it is important for you to support your statements. This is the column that I work for. This is a A-B column. This is maybe a B minus column, but heading towards C. This is a D column. This is a F column. So you want to be AB. If you want to get here, you end up with C probably, or maybe a high B. Here you're going to end up with a D, and here you're going to end up with an F. So what is it? I will tell you whether or not you did it. Clear and comprehensive. Notice it all the way down. Clear and comprehensive. So you got to do your research and provide the sources. Now, let me refresh your memory again. Do the 18th, but let me refresh your memory. Your paper should be 3 pages in length, APA formatted, with in-text citations and a reference page. And you have sources here to help you. That's it. That's the assignment. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We've already talked about the discussion post. Told you about how to find the live recording. Right now, if you clicked on it, it will take you to the live lecture. But I will replace that with the recording, which I will also email to you as in addition. So let's talk about some of these theories. So let's talk about the classical theory. The classical theory is that people commit crimes because they choose to, or they decide to, and make a rational choice based on their own free will to commit a crime. In other words, they as we say in the law business, they knowingly, intentionally, with malice and a forethought, which means that oftentimes they planned it, they thought it out. And these theories help us to somewhat understand why individuals commit crime. So the two major theories are classical and positive. Classical theory is the thought, and by the way, don't cite the module when you give your sources. This is information to help you get started. On the other hand, the positivist theory says that criminal behavior is not a choice, but the result of other causes in someone's life, such as drugs or poverty or alcoholism. And so positives um, look for scientific ways to explain criminal behavior. The classical theory is just based on the free will of the individual. In other words, you can choose to do or not to commit a crime. I won't get too much deeper than that. Okay. And then again, it says positives believe that sociological, psychological, and biological reasons determine criminal behavior, such as how you were raised up, the community you were raised up in, the teachings of your family, your parents, um, the individuals that you associate with, your peers. And so it is quite clear that there's sociological, which is interaction with others, psychological, how the mind is shaped and formed, and biological. Now, I'm not too cool on the biological reasons, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Says, on the other hand, classical theorist Cicera Bakari explained that criminal behavior is a choice. Remember, that's the free will and the choice, and that a rational decision is made to outweigh the risk. In other words, there's less of a chance I'll get caught and more of a chance that I'll be successful in committing a crime. That's the classical theory. Okay. Positive theories that attempt to explain criminal behavior, as it says, can be psychological, biological, and social. So we're going to talk about them one by one. So the psychological theory deals with the mind itself and the ability of individuals to learn how to become a criminal. I've often said that individuals who go to prison and jail for longer periods of time develop the mental capacity to commit crimes, and that you can learn to be a criminal even if you're innocent. And that's why the wrongful convictions are so important, is that you can be in there, but you're subjected to the environment. And because you're subjected to the environment, you're going to take the opportunity to want to survive while you're in there. And so, you know, we started to talk about the mindset of individuals. Deal with psychologists like Freud. Freud says that criminology is a result of psychological conflict and that negative early childhood experiences. So I would suspect that the fact that yours truly grew up in a home where there was violence all the time, where there was domestic violence, particularly if you listen to my story in Adversity is a Springboard to Success, and recognizing that I was also in an area that turned out initially to be a pretty bad area. There was shootings and stabbings and robberies and things like that. However, I chose not to go that way. But Freud says that it is more likely that individuals who are exposed to what I just described will become criminals. That's just the way that they describe it. The personality theory assumes that criminals have different thinking patterns than non-criminal personalities. Okay, and then there's a real life example here, which you can take time to read, and I won't go over that. So, taking into consideration what you learned from this example, and looking at the other theories, the individual's criminal behavior, we could determine that psychological give us a window into the personality of the individuals. The psychodynamic theory explains that each behavior has a cause that is rooted in childhood experiences. You heard what I just said a few minutes ago. They say I'm atypical because I didn't allow that kind of thing. I've never been charged with a crime or arrested or behind bars or any of those kinds of things, except when I was working as a lawyer or when I was working in law enforcement, dealing with individuals. So Freud says that every action we take is in our unconscious and a direct result of our environment from growing up in childhood. Once again, that is the theory of what that's all about. It says ineffective parenting in the early years prevents the healthy development of our egos and superego, which allow us to control our aggressive impulses. So in other words, we learn it from what we observe with our parents. I already told you my situation. Again, I am one who contradicts that by the road in life that I ended up taking. Okay. So now let's switch and let's go to the biological theory. So we know about the psychological theory in your mind, how you grew up, what you were exposed to. Now the biological theories developed in the 1800s by Lombroso said that criminality was inherited, much like your eyes, blue eyes, or infirmities. This theory was supported by Darwin's theory about evolution, which saw criminality as a throwback to primitive behavior. Biological theories were disproved by Charles Goring, who discovered a relationship between crime and low intelligence after examining 3,000 convicts who displayed no difference in biological characteristics. So it's weak. It's extremely weak. It's extremely weak. It's basically, to be, as far as I'm concerned, it makes me think about what I have heard said from some of my law enforcement colleagues, that there is a strong belief that African American males are violent and commit crimes greater than Caucasian males. And it's based upon the biology of our skin color, and that when observing the race of a person, the genes of a person, you can determine whether or not they are criminals or not. I take offense to that. Biological factors that have been examined and determined to affect criminality are psychophysiological, such as the heart rate and skin conductance, the brain mechanism, and genes. And the key thing is that these things are supposed to determine, along with the brain itself. It suggests that antisocial or criminal behavior tends to exhibit through brain volumes and genes based upon um, antisocial behavior, criminality such as intelligence, personality, and mental health disorders. Um, so a significant body of research points to the fact, as it reads here, as I read this, that crime is inherited to some extent and links both psychiatric and psychological constructs that determine the inheritance of intelligence, mental health, behaviors, and personality. Again, I take offense to those things. I can find many people who were raised in situations where it would be apparent that they are typed or stereotyped based upon where they lived and where they were raised up, being raised sometimes by a single parent as opposed to a two-parent home, or in a home where there's a step parent as opposed to both natural parents involved here. Again, I disavow all of that because I lost both of my natural parents by the time I was 13 years old. So I think I turned out okay. Somebody says, but you're atypical. Well, again, my role is to encourage people and students. Even when I was representing individuals as a criminal defense lawyer, I would look at the excuses that some of my clients would give. Oh, I didn't have my dad, or we didn't have much. And I'd shake my head to them and tell them, you have to make a choice about which way you're going to go. And if you're going to roll the dice to believe that you're not going to get caught, famous last words of individuals who ultimately become criminals. So what's the definition of a criminal? An individual who is convicted for a crime. Therefore, they become known as criminals. Until then, you are not that. Now, if you are a repeat offender, you're still a criminal, but the question is, did you commit the crime for the second time? But as we already know as lawyers, that when a person has committed a crime, oftentimes when we represent them, we will not put them on the stand because we recognize that that would affect their credibility in an adverse manner, because it would be brought out that, hey, if they committed a crime before and they were convicted, that leans more towards what the prosecution wants, that it makes it more likely than not that they committed that crime. But that's not a fact. And that's what we defense attorneys would do with reasonable doubt. While individual studies vary, meta-analysis have suggested the level of heritability of antisocial behavior is 40 to 60%. So you can learn more about that from your research there. So like I said, remember the psychological deals with the mind, the biological aspects of it deals with the characteristics of the individual, their communities and things of that nature, which leads us to the last one, sociological theory. Blame criminality on the environment, straight up. So if the child is surrounded by anti-social family or criminal parents, or lives in poverty, or in a disadvantaged community, is more than likely to mimic criminal behavior. That again is under debate, out for debate, because I know many young people of all ethnic groups who were in pretty bad areas, but rose above that to become very successful and went on to get education and good jobs and to live a good life. Again, I hold my hand up for that one. Some experts point to the situational or environmental as influencing criminal behavior. Again, I think on a case-by-case basis, you have to look at that. I really don't like the theories that oftentimes come about. By the way, good people, you're going to discover when you get down to the what we call the nitty-gritty or the heart of the matter that most crime today is based on two causes: drugs and mental health. Those are the two big tickets. People commit crimes. If you take my drugs and crime course, J250, I will be I discuss that in a lot of detail. But the idea is that um, uh, where you come from determines how far you go in life. That's kind of like what they say. And so it's people are astounded and amazed when people like myself talk about the background that we came out of and achieve success. They make big deals out of it. They give us medals. They give us plaques. I have all of that stuff. So look at what it says here. Since these individuals cannot achieve success as prescribed by mainstream societal norms, they then reject those norms and turn to crime as a way to achieve illegitimate, unacceptable means. In keeping with this idea, proponents of social theories on crime believe that behavior is learned when it is reinforced, and that people will repeat behavior when it's gratifying and rewarded. Well, that's partially true, but that's not the case for individuals who have mental problems because they're not in control of their mental faculties, or drugs because people commit crimes to support their drug habits. You hear me say that over and over and over in that drugs and crime course. But I always remind my law enforcement people that we have to get down to the heart of the matter and deal with it. Sometimes, unfortunately, the psychological, sociological, and the biological, people already think, I already know how this person is going to turn out. Well, we hope that we can turn that person around by offering them some encouragement, and to hopefully that will stick to them and give them the impetus and motivation to succeed. That's what my story is. Adversity is the springboard to success is all about. Okay. Finally, in that area, still other experts contend that individuals who live in lower class communities are exposed throughout life to a different set of values than those um, uh, who view commission of crime as acceptable. It becomes difficult to change this attitude because it's transmitted from one generation to the next. I kind of understand that statement because when I started practicing law, I represented individuals. By the time I retired in 2000 from 78 to full-time practice, I represented the children of some of my clients and even some of the grandchildren and nieces and nephews and people that were in the lineage of the family. And so here's some final information in this last paragraph. And then these are some of the sources that they got, that they utilized to come up with the information here. Again, the socioeconomic, the psychological theories, a review on youth violence, social control and self-control theories, and then social structure. You just got to do the research. Okay. All right. Rational choice. Okay. Now, the rational choice theory and the routine activity theory. Let's take the rational choice theory. Says that people who make deliberate calculations in order to achieve their desired goals and their best interests, in their best interest. It presumes that all humans criminal or non-criminal make decisions based on the benefits outweighing the risk. Yes, kind of, sort of. It does come that. And it explains that criminals make a conscious decision to commit crime only when they believe that the benefits of committing the crime outweigh the risk or the consequences of getting caught. Yes, but if you fall into the category of the major reasons why crime exists, mental and drug abuse or alcoholic abuse, then those don't apply, because you have to cure the illness, address the illness in order to deal with the issue. Okay, so the rational choice issue came long before the things that I'm talking about right now with the drugs and alcohol, and has expanded to include the routine activity theory, situational crime prevention and deterrence. It says it is obvious then why crime prevention and deterrence rely heavily on the rational choice theory as the justice system looks for ways to decrease crime rates. Well, we learn now that rehabilitation is one of the key things that we must do. We must take individuals and help them as we deal with the corrections course to turn them in a new direction. We understand it says that criminals make the choice to commit crime. It is then up to the justice system to implement punishments that are swift and will make the risk of getting caught outweigh any benefits. You know what that sounds like? Deterrence theory. The deterrence theory doesn't really work. For example, it says here, it is a well-known fact that homes with burglar alarms, barking dogs, outside property lights are less likely to be broken into those without those things. The reason is that the burglars represent or present the position of a high risk of getting caught. So yes, that's always going to be involved there. Okay. So the classical rat crime act triangle. So you have the motivated offender, nobody to teach them otherwise, and then there are targets that are suitable. So that results in the routine activities. So you have they're motivated by the circumstance, situation, so forth, some of the things we talked about earlier. Nobody there to try to turn them around. Sorry about that, a little gnat flew in front of the screen. And then they find individuals who are targets, the elderly, the young, people who are very gullible, and they feast upon them. So the key thing, just without getting too deep into this, and as you continue your research, you'll be able to get more. The routine activity theory, as it says, emerged to understand how the intersection of circumstances surrounding the victim, the offender, and the place merge together to create the opportunity for crime, like what we just talked about a few minutes ago. The characteristics of a place dictate what occurs there. Okay, lighted places where a lot of people, you might not have a lot of crime. Maybe now it's a little different. And then you can look at these points here, and I won't spend a lot of time. So let's summarize this whole section up with this last paragraph, which is excellent in bringing it home. It says, so thus for crime to occur, three things must happen. We already talked about them: the offender, the suitable target, and lack of guardian or security. There's no security. There's nothing to protect them. And so those individuals are open. They learn to understand crime based upon the fact that it's like leaving a $20 bill on the ground, looking around, nobody pick it up, and these kind of things. So those three things come together, and crime occurs. For example, a student attending night classes at a university in a city known for its high crime rate may decide that parking on campus is too expensive. So it says she or he parks several blocks away. He or she has made a calculated decision, which is the rational choice, that saving money is to the advantage and outweighs the risk of being attacked. However, though, this activity of walking along in the dark through crime-ridden, deserted city streets is an activity that makes that person a suitable target. If an offender is in the area and there is no security present, there's no reason to believe that they will be caught. Somebody asked, what about security cameras? To be honest with you, I don't think that criminals, when they commit crimes out, think about the security cameras. I don't think so. So that's how criminals look at it. In other words, they look at, are you an easy target? That's the key thing. So remember the three things: a motivated offender, the absence of some protection from the individual. And if you look at that even bigger, okay? And then suitable target, okay? Like putting yourself in a bad spot so that you can, like that person walking in the dark. I oftentimes tell my kids, watch your surroundings, pay close attention. So the final section here is crime control methods. We have cameras. We have now we have methods that can help us, from dash cameras to body cameras, surveillance cameras, to phone cameras. DNA is now involved that can help exonerate an individual. Crime prevention through the environmental design and situation prevention techniques, all helping in reducing crime itself. Shows that when you keep lights on, like if you're away, keep your lights on. Don't have it dark for two reasons. One, they don't know who's in there. And then number two, the other reason, if a person is in there, they can easily be seen from the outside as well. Having a burglar alarm or a dog. Our dog, we have a golden doodle. Whenever someone comes to the door or rings the bell or opens it, he barks and lets them know. And he's a pretty big dog, even though he's only a year old. But if an individual wants to come into the house, they will stop and think. They say, well, this is not such a good move because it's drawing attention. Criminals don't like attention, and especially burglars. You know that the reason why the typical burglar will wear dark clothing is because burglary generally was a nighttime activity and you could blend in, but now it's 24/7. So anyway, anything that can tip the scales towards getting caught, they start to look at it. Okay. So the deterrence theory, like I said again, I don't particularly believe in it because it doesn't work. Certainty, severity, and severity. Certainty refers to the likelihood of getting caught. Cameras and security cameras and so forth and all those things increase that. Severity means the speed to which a punishment is imposed. The faster the criminal receive punishment, the likelihood that it may affect their choice. Finally, the severity of a punishment is enough to deter, especially that severity part. It doesn't work. The deterrent factor is not so good. Says, for example, increasing punishment sanctions is the easiest deterrent method to change because it involves the increasing sentence. But research has shown that criminals who serve longer sentences are more likely to reoffend, like what I said earlier, because you'll learn more about becoming a criminal. Experts agree that all three deterrent components, it is in the certainty of getting caught, carries the most deterrent effect. Of course, an offender's perception of risk or fear of getting caught diminishes if they're under the influence of some drug or alcohol or something, as I said earlier. Okay, so what happens if you increase the security measures through police, security guards, guardians, surveillance, or routine activities? You can increase the chance that an individual could be caught. But once again, be aware of the fact that we need to get to the heart of the core of why individuals commit crimes. And I will just basically say this to you as I conclude, that these theories that we talk about here are good, but using technology and all of these things, yes, they might decrease it, but will not eliminate it. The way that you're going to do it is get to the heart of the matter of the problem. And that's it. That's it for me. So what do I want to do is give you a phrase. Crime control. That's it. Give me crime control and you'll get your points for this lecture. So I hope this lecture has kind of helped you to think about some of the things that you are looking at in researching and understanding. Like I said, as we say, reducing it down to the least common denominator. Crime does not pay. Crime does instead create problems for yourself, for your family, for your community. And it is counterproductive to civilized societies operating. So what we have to do is focus on, yeah, we got these theories, but we can psychologically, sociologically, physiologically, biologically look at all of these situations, and then we come back and say, okay, let's get to the heart of it. And the heart of it is, what's the cause of the individuals committing crime? I mean, what's the real deal? And I said already, and I submit this in closing, that if we, the war on drugs obviously didn't work very well. So now it's getting quite clear that we need to address the health issues, crisis for opioids and heroin addiction, and for the results that start from innocent individuals with painkillers. Again, if you take J280, you'll know more detail about it. I spent it. But here's what I've discovered, is that the theories are good for academics. But in reality, if we attack the mental health issues full throttle and the drug problems full throttle, you'll see a tremendous cut. Now, maybe there will be people that don't want it. I had a judge I knew years ago, Eugene Pincham. He once said that if things were done to decrease crime, there would be individuals who would lose their jobs and would have to go find something else to do. Well, again, there won't be a need for fewer law enforcement people, particularly in our day and time, but we need, as I teach constantly, educated, professional, and ethical law enforcement officers, probation officers, parole officers, and the like. So we have to recognize that um, actually the criminal justice system is a giant hospital for the sick. And we are the doctors, and we have to meet it and grab the bull by the horns. So with that, I'm going to say good night. I'll see you next week at 8:30 Central Standard Time. Hope more of you start to show up so you can ask questions during the lecture. So with that, by the way, your written assignments will be graded by the end of the day tomorrow. Good night.